So until next time, me and Tim Tam here will say goodbye. Bye.
Hey, and welcome to a Thursday Collection Connection, where we're playing that game. It's just an excuse to talk about records. Play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric, from the Plastic Soundwave Cult channel, and you can play along, follow along by subscribing to both channels. In Eric's last video, he talked about The Fall, the compilation Palace of Swords Reversed. And I kind of had the same experience I did with the previous time. He showed a Fall record, in that it seemed like it's a little tough climbing for me. It's funny because, in a way, Marky Smith makes me think of other English eccentrics like Julian Cope, Robin Hitchcock, both of whom I really enjoy. Presented albums from both, but I think it would take a little more sitting to really connect, if I was going to connect with the Fall's music. The first thing that struck me was that the title, the Palace of Swords Reversed, and it made me think immediately of Montreal. I thought about playing an Of Montreal album because not only the album title, but a lot of the song titles sound like just sort of word soup, plucked words that maybe they thought sounded cool together, that are mystifying and sort of hard to remember. As I looked into it, I guess, apparently, the Palace of Swords Reversed is a tarot reference. And so then I went looking for some tarot references in album titles. Couldn't think of one, couldn't find anything by searching tarot phrases. So that was kind of a dead end and a bust. But as I listened to the album, what it really made me think of was the Velvet Underground. And specifically how Marky Smith doesn't really sing his songs. It's more like a performance, a recitation of words. He doesn't really sing at all. And similarly, Lou Reed doesn't so much sing as perform, do his own recitations over just sort of a churning background music. So that made me think that the Fall were probably big fans of the Velvet Underground and that style that I don't know that they invented necessarily, but certainly the most notable early purveyors of this sort of avant-garde, more performance-based than really song or hook-based. It's more about an experience. They existed as a band, but were sort of found by Andy Warhol, who plugged them into his Exploding Plastic Inevitable show, and forced Nico, the German singer, on the band. And obviously, they made an iconic first album together, the Velvet Underground and Nico. But they never really considered Nico part of the band, and she had solo aspirations, and so that collaboration only lasted the one album. The most Velvet Underground-y Velvet Underground to me is their second album, White Light, White Heat. What was that, from 1968, I think. The astute may note, that doesn't look a damn thing like White Light, White Heat, and you're right, and that's because this is from the Peel Slowly and See box set that gathered their first four albums plus a lot of bonus material. So you see this, there's kind of a representation of the album cover. Disc 3 is the one, and I thought, again, rather than trying to assign somebody a 5-disc box set, I would focus on a single album contained within that box set. And that's their second album, White Light, White Heat, which is the most difficult, honestly, album for me of theirs to listen to. I would say it's the least enjoyable listen. I put myself through Sister Ray twice yesterday, all 17 plus minutes of it. It's raucous and it's raw and really kind of sounds like the inspiration of the Fall to me. Their third album, just called The Velvet Underground, is probably my favorite of their records, but it got a lot more quiet and tuneful. And Loaded, interestingly, I only just realized as I was doing this that I had never actually put into my library, my music library, because I think I thought it was Squeeze, which was the Lou Reed-less Velvet Underground album, but that's not even included in this box set. But it's kind of wild that with changing dynamics, changing lineups, that the second album is the only album solely made up of what you would consider the classic lineup of Velvet Underground, which is Lou Reed, John Cale, and Sterling Morrison and Mo Tucker on drums, because they had Nico on the first album and John Cale left after the second album. So it's kind of strange that they only really existed as that specific foursome, at least on record, for the one album. And to me, it is the hardest one to listen to. It was weirdly, Sweet Jane is on Loaded, and they were actually trying to be a little marketable on that fourth record, so it's not too bad to listen to. Whether or not the band liked Nico, the chill that she brings, the coolness, the Teutonic ice that she brings to her tracks, the songs that she sings, makes them pretty in their way. And I think Sterling Morrison or John Cale said that the second album was consciously anti-beauty, that they were kind of trying to make as messy and slipshod an album sort of as they could. It was just all visceral. And so I don't find it a ton of fun to listen to, but it's the one that I picked, not to make a tough listen for Eric, but because it's the one that makes me think of the Fall. So you could probably intuit from that how much I enjoyed the Fall album. But even that's unfair. It wasn't terrible, and I don't think White Light, White Heat is terrible. The title track is probably, it opens up the album, is probably the most listenable thing on there. The Gift is a John Cale actually telling a story that Lou Reed wrote, and just that's him telling it to music. And the only real kind of singing on the album is John Cale again in the next track, which is Lady Godiva's Operation. And oddly, he sings it in a very Nico, to me, style. Almost like church choir boy. Not very feeling. But even that gets sloppy as he trades off after a little while with Lou Reed, who is not trying to sing at all. It seems like he's barely making it to the microphone in time. I have a handful of Velvet Underground tracks that I truly love. A number more that I find interesting, and in some cases entire albums that I find a little hard to listen to and are more interesting historical documents than they are anything I would ever put on just because, or anything that I would put on when I felt like listening to music. This is almost the essence of a homework record, where just the familiarity with it feels like sort of basic knowledge and understanding. I think it was Brian Eno was credited with the line that not a lot of people bought the Velvet Underground's records when they came out, but everyone that did started a band. So their influence is far, far and wide. The albums never really charted in the band's lifetime, and it was only really upon Lou Reed's death a few years ago that some of the albums actually got a little chart action, I think mostly in the UK. But it's neither here nor there. I'm sure I've babbled on for long enough, and so my connection, which is singers that don't really sing, Marky Smith from The Fall and Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground, the progenitors of so much music that I truly love. And I will throw that pick over to Eric, and you can look for his response on Monday. And in the meantime, I've said my piece. So I thank you for watching, and bye bye.